In this episode, we're going to make cables feel a lot less confusing by focusing on one simple question over and over again. What is this cable supposed to carry? New learners often look at a drawer full of cables and see a mess of similar-looking ends, black jackets, and adapters that all seem interchangeable until something does not work. A user may say the monitor stays dark, the printer is not found, the network is slow, or the laptop is charging but not connecting to the dock, and the real problem may be the cable choice itself. That is why this topic matters so much for beginners. A cable is not just a piece of wire that joins two things. It is a path designed for a certain kind of signal, a certain connector, and a certain purpose. Once you understand what common cable types carry and where the mismatches happen, support gets much easier because you stop guessing based on shape alone and start thinking about what the cable was actually built to do. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.Me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A very helpful starting point is to divide cables into broad groups before worrying about individual connector names. Some cables use copper and carry electrical signals. Others use fiber and carry light. Some are meant for networking, some are meant for displays, and some are meant for peripherals such as printers, keyboards, storage devices, and charging accessories. That big picture view matters because many support mistakes happen when a beginner notices that two connectors look similar and assumes the signal inside must also be similar. It often is not. Copper is common, practical, and easy to find, but it can be affected by distance limits and electrical interference depending on the use. Fiber is built for different strengths and is often used when distance, speed, or resistance to interference matters more. If you keep asking whether the cable carries electrical signal, light, video, audio, network traffic, charging power, or peripheral data, the topic becomes much less about memorizing shapes and much more about matching purpose to connection. Copper network cables are some of the most common cables a beginner will see, especially the twisted pair cables used for Ethernet connections. These are the familiar patch cables that often connect computers, switches, routers, access points, printers, and wall jacks in homes and offices. They usually use a connector commonly called registered jack 45, or J45, and they carry network data between devices on the local network. Category ratings such as Category 5E and Category 6 matter because they help describe how the cable is built to handle speed and signal quality. A user may only say the wired connection is slow or keeps dropping, but the wrong copper cable can absolutely be part of that story. A damaged patch cable, a poorly made termination, or a lower grade cable in a situation that needs better performance can all create support trouble. For beginners, the key point is that an Ethernet cable is not just any wire with a clear plastic end. It is a data cable meant for network traffic, and the cable type still matters even when the connector shape looks familiar. Connector size and shape are also important because beginners often try to make a cable fit by appearance rather than by function. A phone line connector commonly called registered jack 11, or J11, is smaller than an RJ45 network connector, and the two are not meant to do the same job. That sounds obvious when said out loud, but it still causes confusion because both may appear in offices and homes where phones, network equipment, and old service lines exist together. Coaxial cable is another good example. It uses a very different style of connector, often an F-type connector in home internet and television setups, and it carries a different kind of signal path than twisted pair Ethernet cable. Coaxial may be part of a cable internet connection, a television feed, or certain security and older media environments. The beginner lesson is very simple. If the connector is different, there is usually a good reason, and that reason is tied to the signal type and the job being done. Support problems often start when someone treats all communication cables like they are cousins of the same thing when they really are not. Fiber optic cable becomes much easier to understand once you stop thinking of it as advanced or mysterious and simply remember that it carries light instead of electrical signal. That makes fiber very useful for longer distances, higher speeds, and environments where electrical interference would be a problem for copper. In a business environment, fiber may connect switches across a building, link network closets on different floors, or support fast backbone traffic between important devices. Common fiber connector styles include subscriber connector, SC, lucent connector, LC, and straight tip, ST. And while a beginner does not need deep engineering detail on each one, it is useful to recognize that fiber ends do not work like copper Ethernet ends. Fiber type matters, connector type matters, and cleanliness matters because dust, damage, or a bad match can stop light from moving the way it should. If a user sees a cable and assumes it is just another network lead, they may not realize that a fiber connection cannot be treated casually, bent sharply, or mixed with the wrong connector type without creating immediate trouble. Fiber also teaches an important beginner lesson about matching the whole connection path, not just one end of it. A cable must match the ports it is being used with, and fiber systems often depend on the correct connector style, the correct fiber type, and the correct equipment on both ends. That means a cable can look high-end and still be completely wrong for the job if it does not match the hardware. Copper and fiber may both support network communication, but they do not do it in the same physical way, and you cannot swap them casually just because the goal is still network traffic. This is one reason technicians become careful around fiber even at a basic level. If a link goes down after equipment is moved, a bend becomes too sharp, or the wrong cable is inserted between devices that expect another type, the result may look like a major network failure when the real problem is only the media choice. Beginners should remember that media means the physical path used to carry the signal, and the path must match what the hardware expects. Display cables are another area where shape alone causes a lot of support mistakes. A monitor cable is not just a monitor cable. Some display cables carry video only, some carry video and audio together, some are older analog styles, and some are newer digital styles that support higher resolutions and smoother refresh rates. If a user says the monitor stays black, looks blurry, has no sound, or cannot reach the expected resolution, the cable choice may be part of the story before the screen itself is ever blamed. This matters because displays often sit at the meeting point of laptops, desktops, docks, projectors, adapters, and external monitors, and every link in that chain must support the signal being asked of it. For beginners, the best first question is whether the cable is meant to carry the kind of display signal needed by both devices. The second question is whether the connector fits physically and logically. Those are not the same thing, and a cable that fits the port does not always support the result the user expects. High-definition multimedia interface, HDMI, is one of the most common display connections in homes, classrooms, and offices, and beginners should think of it as a modern digital display cable that usually carries both video and audio together. That makes it very useful for monitors, televisions, projectors, and many docking or conference room setups. If the picture appears but the sound does not, or the device works with one display but not another, the issue may involve settings, versions, or adapters, but HDMI itself is often part of the path being checked first. DisplayPort, DP, is another digital display standard, and it is common on business monitors, desktops, and some docking equipment. DP also supports strong display performance, but it is not interchangeable with HDMI just because both are digital and both may support high-quality output. A user might assume one simple cable swap will fix everything, but if the source device, dock, monitor, or adapter does not support the same signal path correctly, the result may be no image, the wrong resolution, or a display that works only partly. Older display connections help show why cable history still matters in support work. Digital Visual Interface, DVI, was common for many years and can still appear in older monitors or business equipment. Video Graphics Array, VGA, is an older analog display connection, and it is often recognized by the larger connector shape and the screws used to secure it. VGA is important for beginners because it explains why some older displays can look softer or blurrier than modern digital displays, especially at higher resolutions. If someone connects a modern system to an older display path and complains that text looks fuzzy, that is a clue that the problem may not be a damaged screen at all. It may simply be an older analog connection being pushed beyond where it looks best. DVI also creates support confusion because some versions support different signal types, which means not every DVI setup is equal. The beginner lesson is that older display cables still work in many places, but they often bring limits and adapter confusion that do not show up as much with more modern display connections. Peripheral cables are a huge part of everyday support, and Universal Serial Bus, USB, is one of the biggest reasons why. USB is used for keyboards, mice, printers, webcams, storage devices, phones, tablets, docking stations, and charging accessories. That sounds wonderfully simple until a beginner learns that not every USB cable does the same job. Some USB cables are mainly for charging power. Some handle data very well. Some can support both. Some connectors look similar but belong to different versions or different shape families. Type A, Type B, Micro, Mini, and Type-C connectors all appear in real environments, and the shape tells you part of the story, but not the whole story. A user may say the device charges but is not detected, or the printer powers up but will not communicate, or the phone connects to the computer but files do not appear. Those are classic signs that the cable in use may not support the full data path needed for the job, even though power is getting through. USB Type-C creates a lot of beginner confusion because it is a very flexible connector shape, but that flexibility leads people to assume all Type-C cables and ports do the same thing. They do not. One Type-C cable may support charging only, another may support data and charging, and another may support video output through certain devices and docks. This is one of the most important beginner cable lessons in modern support. The connector shape is not the whole answer. Two cables can look nearly identical and still offer very different capabilities. That is why a laptop may charge through one Type-C cable, but fail to drive an external monitor or connect properly to a dock through that same cable. It is also why users get frustrated when a cable from one device seems to work perfectly for power, but fails for everything else. Good support means asking not only whether the cable fits, but whether it is built for charging, data, display output, or some combination of those tasks. Printer and peripheral support often depends on noticing small cable details that users do not think about. A printer may connect over USB, over Ethernet, or even wirelessly, and those are very different paths even though the user only sees that printing works or does not work. External storage devices may also connect through USB, but the wrong cable can reduce performance or prevent the device from being seen reliably. Some older printers and peripherals use square-shaped USB Type-B connectors on the device side, which can confuse beginners who assume all USB should look like the flat connector found on many computers and chargers. Audio accessories add another layer, because a simple 3.5mm cable may carry analog audio, while a digital headset may connect through USB instead. The beginner point here is that peripheral cables are tied to function just like network and display cables are. If the cable does not match the way the device expects to communicate, the user may blame the hardware when the real problem is simply the path chosen between the devices. Adapters and dongles are useful, but they are also where many cable problems become harder to see. An adapter may help connect one physical connector style to another, but it does not magically create support for a signal type the source device never had. For example, a laptop with a display-capable Type-C port may work well with the right display adapter, while another laptop with a more limited Type-C port may fit the same adapter and still never produce a picture. The beginner lesson is that physical fit and signal compatibility are two separate questions. A display adapter can help bridge connector shapes, but only if the device on the sending side truly supports the needed signal path. The same idea applies to network and peripheral adapters. A user may plug in an adapter and feel sure the problem should be solved because the ends now match, but the internal communication may still be wrong. That is why support should always ask what the device is capable of, not just what can be physically attached to it. Cable quality, cable condition, and cable length also matter much more than beginners often expect. A cable can look mostly fine from the outside and still be bent too sharply, worn out near the connector, poorly shielded for its use, or too long for the signal to stay healthy. Network cables may create intermittent drops. Display cables may cause flicker, blank screens, or limited resolution. Peripheral cables may charge unreliably or disconnect when moved slightly. Fiber can be especially sensitive to dirt, damage, and poor handling, while copper can suffer from strain, damaged pins, or internal breaks that only show up when the cable is flexed. This is why experienced technicians do not assume that because a cable worked last month, it must still be healthy now. A lot of daily support problems are solved by recognizing that the cable path itself is weak, even when the ports and devices at each end are perfectly healthy. Beginners should learn to respect cables as active parts of the system, not as invisible background pieces that can never be the cause. The big takeaway from this topic is that cables become much easier when you stop trying to memorize them as a pile of connector names and start asking what they carry and what job they are meant to do. Copper network cables carry electrical data for local network traffic. Fiber carries light for networking where distance, speed, or interference resistance matters more. Display cables carry video, and sometimes audio, but older and newer display standards are not all equal. Peripheral cables often carry power, data, or both, and shape alone does not guarantee full compatibility. Most support mistakes in this area happen when someone assumes a connector match means a complete match. Once you learn to think in terms of media, signal type, purpose, and capability, you stop second-guessing so much. You start seeing why the wrong cable choice causes exactly the kind of problems users report every day. And that is what makes cable support feel practical instead of frustrating.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.